Today, we have the chance to learn the latest on solar in Illinois, its impact on the environment, climate equity, and the future, and why you should care. We'll also connect you with resources on how to get started. We'll hear from Jake Archbell, Solar Programs at Elevate, Gary Canine, founder and director of 7 Generations Ahead, Ia Lewis, Contractor Development Coordinator at Elevate, Jose Hernandez, Senior Associate Community Resource Team, also from Elevate. And we'll break down what's happening in solar energy and what it means for you. So welcome to this edition of Elevating Our Stories of Climate Equity. First up, we'll talk with Jake and Gary about their work. Jake and Gary, so glad that you're here. Tell us about your role and what you do around solar education in your organization. And Jake, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks, Sylvia. I'm glad to be here. So I support Elevate's programs across the organization by providing solar assessments for multifamily, single family, and nonprofit buildings, as well as work with municipalities. We're also increasingly starting to integrate storage, battery storage into our work. And we also externally do a lot of work with costing tools to help solar become more affordable and break down costs for people that are interested in solar, as well as feasibility tools like the Chicago Solar Map, which we'll talk about later. And we also support research into different aspects of solar and making that more accessible to people.
This is so exciting because there are multiple layers to the work that we do with Elevate, and I'm glad you're here to shed light on your part of the team. I also just want to talk a little bit about the solar battery work. Why is that increasingly important?
Sure. So, yeah, that's right. Increasingly, battery storage is becoming more valuable as an add-on service for solar. It allows you to use the solar that your system might generate during the day, later in the day, so you can time shift your solar energy instead of just using it when you generate it. So it's increasingly valuable, not only for homeowners, but also from the utilities perspective. So that's going to be a lot more prevalent going forward. It kind of increases the amount of flexibility that solar has.
Flexibility, reliability, really important.
Right.
I'm going to come back to the Chicago Solar Map. But Gary Canine, thanks for joining us again on our little program. Can you tell us a bit about the work you're doing with CPS and the Goal Solar program?
Yes, thanks, Sylvia, for having me. Back in January of 2021, we began a project in collaboration with Chicago Public Schools and Sandrine Schultz, who's the Sustainability Energy Director for CPS, and really decided to move forward on a couple fronts. One, we wanted to do an analysis of all the Chicago Public School buildings to see how much solar array capacity they had, how much energy they were using, and if they were solar ready. We had to analyze the roof conditions and see how old the roofs were to see if we could develop solar capacity on the roofs or wait until they had to be actually repaired or replaced. You don't want to put solar panels on roofs that are about to be taken down. So the first part is analysis. The second part is to work with CPS to meet its goal of procuring 100% renewable energy by 2025. And Chicago Public Schools is very adamant about achieving that goal. And that's going to be through a combination of on-site solar, but also looking at procuring energy from new projects that are being built in Illinois. And third, and equally as important, is we're trying to connect students to the solar industry, educate them about solar technology, about climate change, but also introduce them to actual professionals in the field that are working on all kinds of levels to make solar energy part of the renewable energy economy in the 21st century.
That is outstanding. We can't do any of this without the next generation, and we owe it to them, right, to do what we can now with that climate clock ticking. You talked about the work you're doing with CPS and their goals. Jake, you're doing some work that can help regular folks see if their building is capable of having solar. Can you tell us what the Chicago Solar Map is and how people can use it?
Yeah, that's right, Sylvia. So with support from the Chicago Community Trust, we've updated a previous iteration of this map that was called the Community Solar map for the Chicago region, and now included in the map are solar capacities for basically every building in Chicago. So anyone can go to the Chicago Solar Map, which you can find on Elevate's website, or by Googling Chicago Solar Map. It'll be the first hit that comes up. You can enter your property address into the map, and it'll give you estimates on the solar capacity of your building, which can help you decide whether or not solar is a good fit for your building. So there are a couple caveats. It's not perfect. There are going to be some buildings that don't show up in our data set. But we would encourage you to reach out to Elevate if you don't see your property listed and you're interested in whether or not your property can host solar.
That is outstanding, and it's so accessible, bringing it to everyone. The website is elevatenp.org. That's elevate, the letter N, P for nonprofit.org. There's more excitement here, too much to contain. Gary, coming back to you, you're doing some globe trotting, at least in terms of your work with young people. Tell us about the UN Climate Summit this year in Glasgow and the youth delegates that you're going to send there.
Yeah, it's a super exciting opportunity. We applied to be an official observer organization at the UN Climate Summit some months ago, and we were accepted. And so based on that, we invited 6 youth actually that are coming with us, 2 from Chicago Public Schools and a few from Oak Park and from Evanston. And these youth are going to be entering into the main delegates area, which is called the Blue Zone. And they're going to be able to hear all the negotiations that are happening from the 200 countries that are participating in the UN Climate Summit. They'll also be able to go into the Green Zone and participate in workshops with youth and adults, look at displays, and really learn from each other about what we need to do to stave off this climate crisis. And so these youth are excited. We're hoping to get them on some panels if possible. And it's going to be a tremendous opportunity, eye-opening for them to be able to participate in this summit.
Well, what I love about it is it's integrated with adults. I think about programs Model UN and other programs that are really great with young people, with their peers. But if we are going to win in the climate crisis, we need everybody at the table. And I love the idea that it's not like a sidebar spot for the young people. They're going to be able to engage, if I'm understanding you right. If not, then I want you to fix it, Gary.
No, exactly. They're going to be engaged in the green zone, hopefully in the blue zone as well. The other thing that we're treating this as is an opportunity for them to be kind of reporters on the street. So they're going to be sending back video clips, interviews with country delegates, pictures, and their own journals and impressions about what's happening at the summit to other youth and adults in the Chicago metro area. And we're going to do a live Zoom cast from Glasgow with the youth to other youth in the Chicago metro area. And so, they're going to have to be learning and studying what they're experiencing, and then kind of putting it into words and pictures and videos and maybe poems, who knows what else, and send that all back to Chicago.
Well, they're going to have to be on our show, so we'll make that happen. I know you work a lot with Vatia Hill on my team. I thank her for introducing you to us, but we're going to have to book that show. Let me come back to Jake. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you do to help communities in your work.
Sure. Thanks, Sylvia. So generally, Elevate works on getting energy and water efficiency programs and solar, and now storage as well, to the people who need them most. Historically, people that have been involved in the clean energy transition and in solar work have looked a lot like me. And Elevate's working really hard to change that by making our programming more accessible and more comprehensive. So some of the ways we're doing that is through job creation and job training through our administration of Illinois Solar for All. We're also doing a lot of work now around Resiliency Hubs, which is an exciting concept that's starting to gain a lot of traction in a lot of
Can you
different
explain
places.
a little bit about that? I'm excited.
Yes.
I heard the buzz in the office. It's a little bit like what it sounds like, but say more.
Sure. So a resiliency hub is a place that a community can gather in case of an emergency. So say you have a power outage and it's in the winter or in the summer and you have really extreme weather. A resiliency hub can act as a place for people to gather, and they can be used as heating and cooling centers. They can be used to keep emergency communications going in case of an outage. So, and they should be developed in consultation with communities to meet the community's needs. So they're essentially really versatile buildings that are typically run on renewable energy, so solar and storage, and sometimes with some backup power. But yeah, they're designed to meet communities' needs in case of extreme weather or events that we're seeing more and more frequently with climate change.
There are so many great anchor organizations, and it's when I was younger, you might go to the library, people would see in some of the sturdy civic buildings, the fallout shelter sign. And now with the climate crisis, with extreme weather, with heat and all of these issues, we really need those hubs to be resilient while we're also working to combat climate change. So I'm going to ask each of you, what can regular people do to make change and to stay informed and to make a difference around renewable energy? So staying informed, making a difference, renewable energy. And Jake, I'll stick with you.
Sure. So one of the best things people can do is just try to learn a little bit about the programs that are offered in your area around energy efficiency and solar. Here in Chicago, ComEd offers a number of energy efficiency programs, as well as, like I mentioned before, the Illinois Solar for All program, which is an income eligible solar program that seeks to provide access to solar for people who have typically been excluded from that market. So learning more about those programs is a great place to start, as well as reaching out to local organizations in your community who support renewable energy projects. I would say those are good places to start.
Thank you, Jake. And Gary, I'll ask you the same, but I want to go back. I know you've been on the show before, but tell us about your company. Tell us what 7 generations ahead means. It seems to reference, I think that Native people used to plan 7 generations ahead. Is that part of your concept? Tell us more.
Perfect. You just hit it on the head. We borrow our name from the Native American principle that says, in every decision or deliberation that we make, we have to consider the impact that it will have on the 7th generation. So it really promotes long-term thinking, caring for the environment, and I think it's the perfect phrase that equates the word sustainability. You have to care for people, for planet, for economic well-being. And it's just one of the most insightful sayings that we came across. And I literally created the name of the organization based on that saying. So it's borrowed from the Native Americans. We do a lot of work in solar right now. We're working up in Waukegan on a project that's going to be a 7 megawatt project that's part of the Illinois Solar for All program, which really is designed to provide solar energy at reduced rate for low to moderate income residents and families. And we're going to be working with groups up there to do the education and community engagement and try to connect residents to that project. And that's a big role that we typically like to play, is to educate residents, connect them to the opportunities to buy newly developed solar energy, and ideally at a reduced rate. We also do a lot of work in waste reduction and zero waste. We have a zero waste schools program that works in Chicago Public Schools, and we're working with the district right now to look at ways to scale that program up and to systematize it, if you will, and engage more schools in doing everything from eliminating waste sources to increasing recycling to doing composting, so that we don't put that material into landfills, which, as you know, creates greenhouse gas emissions that we're all trying to combat against. We have a lot of other programs. Happy to talk about them as much as you'd like, but I want to be respectful of the time too.
Well, we're doing pretty well on time, and I'm being fair because Jake is an elevator. That's what we call ourselves.
Okay.
And so we love to talk about ourselves and our work, but collaboration is in our DNA, and it's great for us to hear from other organizations. But I think I'll ask both of you, and I'll come back to you in a minute, Gary. When you think about 4, 5 years from now, when some of the things that we're talking about have had their pilot testing or a little more established, we're going to do an entire show on the new Climate and Equitable Jobs Act next month, but and what that can bring to the world. But Jake, put on your dreaming hat. What would you love to see 2 years from now? What world would you like to co-create with your colleagues at Elevate and everyone else?
I'd really like to see the things that the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act talks about, namely increased solar adoption among underserved communities. I'd really like to see that move forward, and I think it's going to happen, not only because of the provisions in the act, but just because of the energy that's around it, from organizations like Elevate and 7 Generations Ahead and so many others. That combined with falling costs of solar, I think we're going to see a lot more solar adoption by a lot more people, and that's really exciting.
Well, I will second that. I hope to see that as well. And we thank all the people who made that legislation happen, from the governor and the speaker to the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, our friends at CUB and other organizations. It was a heavy lift, but now let's make it real and make it work for the people. Same question for you, Gary. Dream your dream. What do you want to see in about 2 years?
I mean, over 3 billion people across the globe are living in poverty right now. And, in countries in the continents of Africa, Asia, South America, if we don't rein in the greenhouse gas emissions, then not only folks in our immediate area that are low income and people of color, but these folks across the globe are going to suffer tremendously. You've seen all of the videos of the hurricanes and the fires and the torrential floods and all of that. That's going to continue to happen. And we simply have to be committed to changing our energy economy to renewable, for one, and making sure that we're decreasing the use of energy through energy efficiency measures, and making sure that that people who are low income, people of color, who have traditionally been left out of job markets, are actually benefiting from jobs and other opportunities that are being created as part of this renewable energy economy. But let's be clear, if we don't solve this issue, and if we don't solve it in the time frame that the scientists are telling us that we need to, which is essentially we have to decrease our emissions by 45% globally by the year 2030. That's in 9 years. That's the priority. And we have to make sure that we are being smart about the strategies that we're pursuing. We have to make sure that we are measuring our progress. And if we're not measuring it, then we better change our strategies, because we don't get a second swing at this. And so, my vision is that everybody gets on board, all hands on deck, and that we really engage our decision makers in making the right decisions, and that we participate collectively in bringing in this new renewable energy economy.
Well, we're doing our part here in Illinois, and we hope to get it right. We're also at Elevate committed to what we call a just transition, because as you close down other types of fossil fuel power sources, you also have to make sure that those communities are not just left, and that their tax base and all of that is addressed. So we've got our work ahead of us, but I have faith in people like you and the young people you're working with. Thank you so much, Jake and Gary, for talking with us today. Coming up, we've got other guests, but let's give the applause to Gary Canine and Jake Archbell from Elevate and 7 Generations Ahead. So we're going to hear from Ia Lewis and Jose Hernandez to talk about Elevate's workforce development. But first, let's watch the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition's Climate and Equitable Jobs Act video, and we'll be right back.
Together, we are making history today, taking a giant leap forward. With economic growth and jobs woven into its fabric, this new law is the most significant step Illinois has taken in a generation toward a reliable, renewable, affordable, and clean energy future.
I am so very grateful for my colleagues, the advocates, the community activists, the youth leaders, the faith leaders, for your work to make today happen. And I want to thank Governor Pritzker for making decarbonization a priority from day one.
The Climate and Equitable Jobs Act prioritizes Black and Brown communities that have been disproportionately impacted and historically suffered due to exposure to toxic pollution. CEJA creates a clean energy economy in Illinois, decarbonizes the electric sector by 2045, prioritizing the retirement of coal and gas plants in environmental justice communities. This work helps ensures that Black and Brown sisters and brothers everywhere are empowered to own their own future. Today, we celebrate our independence from fossil fuels.
All of these community leaders were critical in developing the equity provisions in this bill. These are the people that I fought for in Springfield, and this is why the Climate and Equity Jobs Act is the most equitable clean energy bill in the nation. So let's get to work. There is much to do.
And joining us now are Ia Lewis, Contractor Development Coordinator at Elevate, and Jose Hernandez, Senior Associate, Community Resource Team, also at Elevate, on my team. Welcome, Ia and Jose. We're so glad that you're here. So we're going to talk all about workforce development and the role that you play at Elevate and just what it means to the broader community. Ia, tell us what you do. What does it mean to be a contractor coordinator?
Well, in my role as contractor development coordinator at Elevate, our goal is to capture those diverse contractors that are traditionally left out of the clean energy economy and market and help them gain skills, gain certifications, and gain the confidence to operate within the clean energy economy. That includes any technical and additional training that they may need, making those connections, as well as connections to the workforce that they will need as they grow.
I love it. And we're making space for them. We're making space for them to join us. Why is it important to make a particular effort to bring in diverse contractors?
I would say that in my role at Elevate as a contractor developer, that speaks to including our diverse contractors in a market and in a space that they have traditionally been left out of. And we do this through connecting them with technical services and technical knowledge, if that's what they need, and connecting them with the workforce that is trained in energy efficiency and solar and renewables to carry out the work that is ahead of them.
I love that. And it also speaks the truth about the structural inequities. It's not their lack or what they didn't do. The system has not been welcome and opening. It sounds to me like your work is as a bridge builder to welcome them into this space. Thank you, Ia. And Jose, you were a participant in the workforce development side. Ia was talking about contractors. Tell us about your experience in that training. And you can tell the truth because it's just us listening.
Well, I participated in a solar jobs training program that I actually learned through about a newsletter on the Elevate website. And it was a 10-week course where we covered a wide range of topics from general construction safety to solar panel science and solar panel installation procedures. As part of the course, we actually were also given the opportunity to participate in the City Colleges of Chicago continuing education course, and that focused more on sustainable technologies and emerging industries related to sustainability. The program itself was at the height of the pandemic, actually, so it was mostly virtual. But the effort from Millennium Solar Electric, which were the people handling the solar portion of the program, and John Brophy, the professor over at City Colleges of Chicago, made it so that the program was very comprehensive and gave insight on different avenues we could take in the field of sustainability and green energy. So really grateful for that opportunity, and it was an awesome experience.
Well, we're grateful that not only did you start there, you went on to become a senior associate with Elevate on my team. Did I say that? I said it again. So that is an example of the work. Ia, it must do your heart well to hear this story because you've been involved from the beginning with this program. Can you speak from your perspective about how the workforce development and the contractor development has resonated for people who can benefit from the services?
Sure. I feel in my heart that workforce development is about investing and in some cases reinvesting into under-resourced communities. This is an opportunity for our community members to earn a living wage, no matter what their background is, to learn a new skill that is transferable, that they can take anywhere in the country and in the world. And it's about uplifting the entire community. When we talk about that individual in a household that is now earning a living wage, that feels good and has the confidence that they did not have previously. And it's an example that serves for others to see that it is absolutely possible that they can go from whatever their situation is and happens to be into a space that it not only uplifts their community, but something that they can be proud of, and they can in turn contribute back to the community that they live in.
It's very exciting. And I know that there's some space for people who are returning citizens, formerly incarcerated. Who else?
Foster care alumni. As we all know, folks age out of foster care at age 18. This is a wonderful opportunity for them to gain a skill and to earn a living to take care of themselves and a family if they have one. Another target group is women. Women in construction overall is somewhat of a unicorn situation in some cases, but this gives a great opportunity because there are so many options as far as what your career path will be within the clean energy economy. So if you're like me, don't want to get on a roof, there are other options for you that are available, anything from sales to office management to project management, and the list goes on and on. There's just a number of opportunities to uplift these individuals that have traditionally been left out of the market and don't feel as if they have those options.
That's outstanding. And I think also environmental justice communities is a category as well.
Yes, yes.
So get involved, learn more. I'm just going to share that you can go to the elevatenp.org. That's our website, and the Elevate Community Resource Team, of which Jose is a proud representative. We've got a hotline that is 833-204-1992. If you're just joining us, don't know where you've been, but you're watching another edition of Elevating Our Stories of Climate Equity, and we're really glad that you're here. Jose, can you share an example of a story from the work that you do now? Tell us what the Community Resource Team does and talk about your part in that team.
Right. Well, I really see our role at Elevate as kind of community educators and community liaisons. So we really want to bring everything that EA here is talking about and all the great things we do at Elevate to the community. But I don't think that it stops there. You know, our team is really comprised of a very diverse group of people who are kind of experts in their own community. And because of that, they really care about the community that they participate in. And they look to find any help wherever needed, and they want to bring that to the respective communities. So I'm newer on the team. So one of the things that I'm really pushing for is actually going for Spanish speaking audiences and bringing them that information that they may not have had in the past. So one of the things that I actually participated on was being part of Fiesta del Sol, which is a very big thing in Chicago for the Latino community, the Latinx community. And while I was there, I actually saw a lot of interest regarding solar. And some of the things that I saw was like maybe people weren't really interested in it being a green aspect, you know, greener energy, but they were interested in how they can get jobs in the industry. And being part of this program actually helped me see that side of it, how big of an impact that might make in that community.
That really parallels what Ia was saying about making a change, being an anchor in your community. It is an exciting time, especially with the legislation that has passed recently. So I hear you, more outreach for Spanish speakers and the Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, I'm covering all grounds community. But what do you do on a day-to-day basis? How does your lived experience, Jose, shape the service that you give to the people you work with?
Right. So I am a child of immigrants, and my parents are from Guanajuato, Mexico. They came here in the late 80s. And fortunately for me, my father was given the opportunity to learn a trade. He's actually an auto upholsterer, which they're rare now, and they were back in the day too. But so he was actually able to get into a trade that's kind of sought after, and that opportunity kind of allowed us as a family to move forward and succeed. You know, so I understand the importance of having that information, something as essential as knowing a trade that really isn't being pushed to the communities as much anymore. I understand that can be the difference between just barely making it and succeeding. So I take every day in that sense where maybe this information can change someone's life. And I think the whole team understands the importance of any information that we have and passes that on to the communities that we serve.
Well, the passion that this team has is undeniable. I can't keep up with all of the energy that you have and the desire to reach more and more people. But I admire it so much, and I think that Elevate is a great place for that to happen. Ia, coming back to you, how can people reach you and learn more information about the work that you do? And maybe before you do that, share a story as well.
Sure. One story about one of our contractors is very close to my heart. I have known him for some years now, and he started out in a situation that he was, in every sense of the word, homeless. He was still working, he was still finishing his projects, but it took every single thing that he had in order to do it. He lost most of his worldly possessions in that process because he wanted to make good on that contract and be upstanding with his word. And if we fast forward 2.5, 3 years, when I met him, he has grown exponentially, is working on multi-million-dollar projects now, has become a union shop, which is roughly about $10,000 just to sign that piece of paper to let him into the union, and has since hired a number of community members and sponsored them for the trades. That, to me, is a story of what this is all about. He was given an inch of an opportunity and he took it and has not looked back. He has continued to grow. He has continued to reach back to other smaller contractors and hire them as subs, hire them on his team for project management positions. And he has never once forgotten where he came from. Every time I talk to him, he has more good news to share. So that's a phone call I don't mind getting at 7 a.m. But it does my heart good to know that our programs and some of the resources that we put in front of him, he was able to utilize and has continued to grow because of it.
I love it. That's a really heartwarming story, and it's a story of hard work and effort. I also love the fact that people can get a chance and a second chance. They can be invested in multiple times, because we know that the structures and systems on which the country has been built often are not favorable for people who look like us. So I love the story of how everyone can move forward from unhoused to success and hard work, and from people who had to try a couple of times and still got ahead. I love hearing all of this information. I want to fast forward and ask you to think about the future. We know that there's legislation that has been passed. This entire program that we're talking about was because of the first Future Energy Jobs Act. And now we've got the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. And that term equity is at the core of the work. So one would hope that there's going to be brighter days ahead. Our previous guests gave us justifiable gloom and doom about where we are in the climate crisis, but let's take a moment to be optimistic. I'll come to you, Ia. Where do you want to see your work and your program in 2 years? 2 years from now, what good things do you hope will have happened?
Within the next 2 years, I hope that most of the individuals that we have touched through our training program for solar and decide that they will be business owners. And they make the decision understanding and having the faith that we as Elevate still have their backs, that there is a contractor program or programs that are designed specifically for them to help them get a solid foundation, get their back office, as we call it, and those internal systems in place so that they continue to grow and grow enough to hire other trainees that are coming through the program as well.
I can feel it. You've claimed it. And Jose, now you have just 30 seconds to say your dream, because Ia's dream is going to encompass all of us. I love it. But briefly, what's your dream for 2 years?
Well, I know that we'll work towards our continued efforts of expanding what we do throughout the city and throughout the state of Illinois. And we hope to break through to those hard to reach places that really, really need it the most.
I love it. Well said. And I hope we do this more nationally with you as well. Thank you so much, Ia and Jose, for your great information, your time, and your passion. Before we close, let's take a look at a video on community solar.
Interested in the benefits of solar energy without the ability to install solar panels? Community Solar allows participants to benefit from solar energy without installing panels on their own properties. This option is available for renters that have their own electricity account and homeowners whose home may not be a good fit for solar panels. Through Community Solar, you can subscribe to a portion of a solar system in your utility territory that is located off-site and receive credits on your electricity bill. Credits are based on the electricity generated by the solar system.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Corrado and I manage public sector programs at Elevate. Educating people about the benefits of community solar is an important way to advance Elevate's mission of equity through climate action. In community solar, participants don't need to worry about maintenance and they don't need to be homeowners, which makes solar an option for more people. I would encourage anyone interested in community solar to check out Elevate's website to learn more about our solar equity work.
If you are interested in learning more, please visit elevatenp.org.
I would like to thank all our guests today and all of you for watching at home. Thank you so much for supporting Elevating Our Stories of Climate Equity. We hope you've gained some valuable information on solar energy and its future impact on our state and the nation. In the next episode in November, we'll talk about the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA, and how it made Illinois officially the national leader in equitable climate legislation. We'll talk about how the bill will create jobs, prioritize Black and Brown communities, protect environmental justice communities, and so much more. See you again soon. Be safe, and thanks for watching.